going to do or where to go after leaving the waterfall?
Well, after the band wrapped up, I was getting ready to leave, and I just kind of leaned over to my sister Jennifer and said, "Hey, you know, Brian Jr.'s at the house. I think he just has two friends there. He's going to be turning 23 at midnight. If on your way home and you wanted to swing by and say happy birthday, you know, if you want to do that, come by and do that." And she was like, "Okay."
And when you say sort of the band was wrapping up and the bar sort of winding down, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, about what time was that?
Like 12:45.
And about what time was it, if you know, about what time was it that you left the bar?
A little before 12, 12-ish.
And who, if anyone, left with you?
It was me, my daughter, Caitlin, and my husband.
Who, if anyone, was there when you got there?
When we arrived and I came in, my son was sitting there with his two friends and my nephew, Collin, who is Julie and Chris's son. He was there. I kind of bumped into him when I walked in. I didn't realize he was there. I said, "Oh, hey, you know, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, I just stopped by to see Brian, but I'm about to leave. My ride's about to be here." I said, "Oh, okay."
So when you arrived there, your husband Brian was driving. Where does he park in relation to the house?
We pulled into the driveway.
And when you sort of come into that front door where you were going in to sort of take your shoes off in the foyer, is that when you ran into your nephew, Collin?
Yes.
And you mentioned that he had a ride. Did he give you any indication as to who that ride was?
He didn't mention at that time who the ride was.
And that sort of interaction that you had with Collin in your house prior to him leaving and walking out, about how long a period of time was that?
Couple minutes, not even. Just a quick interaction.
And then he left the home? You didn't see him for the rest of the night?
No.
When you come in and your son Brian Jr. is sitting around the table with two girls, Sarah and Julie, what are they doing?
We were just sitting there.
Was there any sort of music playing or anything like that going on?
There may have been. I'm not sure if there was music playing at that time, but there might have been.
When you say at that time, was there anything that happened later on?
Well, later on, I remember that we had music connected to like a little speaker that we were playing.
ADL,
Yeah, but when I first walked in, I don't remember if they had music going or not.
If anyone else came by your house?
Well, once we were there, it was me and my daughter and my husband, and Brian Higgins had come in. And then it was, Brian and his two friends were already there. And then my sister Jen and her husband Matt came in maybe like 12:15-ish.
And so, Mr. Higgins, did he come in around the same time as you, or did he come after or before?
Yeah, he came in the same time. I mean, I think he might have pulled up to our house before us. But we got out of the car and went right into the house. So I assume he just came in, basically around the same time.
Was there any drinking that was going on there afterward?
Yeah.
About how long a period of time was it that people, from the time that you arrived back from the waterfall to the time that people sort of left and you closed down for the night?
By the time everyone left, it was probably close to 2.
Over the course of the entirety of the evening, at any point, did anybody else, other than the people that you've talked about previously, come into your house?
No.
And specifically, John O'Keefe or Karen Reed that you saw at the bar earlier that night, at any point in time on the evening of the 28th or the early morning of the 29th, did either of those people come into your house?
No, they never came into my home.
Turning your attention to later on that morning of the 29th. So you had gone to bed about what time?
Probably 2:30-ish, somewhere around there.
And how is it that you wake up the next morning?
Well, at some point between 6 and 6:30 that morning, my sister Jennifer came bursting into my bedroom. Well, she came in, my husband and I just kind of sat up in bed, and she's saying, he's out in the snow. We found him out in the snow. We don't know if he's okay. And my immediate thought was just that something had happened to one of my children, something had happened to one of her children. I couldn't imagine why she was in my bedroom at this time in the morning.
At some point later on, did other people come over your house?
Yes, at some point, my friend Brian Higgins, my husband's friend Brian Higgins came over.
And do you know how he came to be at your house that morning?
I believe Brian called him to let him know. I mean, he had been with us the night before, and I think he had been friends with John and Karen, so Brian thought he should let him know.
And do you know about what time that was or how long it was after the officers left that Mr. Higgins came over?
Could have been 15, 20 minutes. I feel like he came somewhere around 7:38, and maybe the link had been done by 7:15. And we were all just still kind of sitting there. Carrie, who is another person that was called that morning, she had been at the hospital, so she was kind of calling Jennifer, giving updates as to what was happening with John. So we were kind of waiting to hear how he was, if he was okay. Then around, I don't know if it was 8:30, I had noticed my sister-in-law, Julie, had pulled into the driveway, and I saw her get out, and she was putting a box of donuts in my son's car, whose birthday it was, because they had a bit between them where every year she did that.
And if you know about how long a period was Julie at your house initially that morning?
An hour or two.
So as far as people that were over your house that morning, do you have any idea of sort of how long people were congregating around your house after that initial Ms. McKay bursting into your bedroom?
Again, it could have been between an hour and two.
Ms. Albert, where is your bedroom located?
Do you want me to show it?
Yes, if you could explain.
Right up here.
So your bedroom is in that upper left-hand quadrant, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The far left window, that's your bedroom window.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. The two of them.
So on January 29th, you had two bedroom windows on the left side of the house that were facing the front lawn where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
Yes.
Ms. Albert, what's the first thing you remember waking up to on the morning of January 29th?
My sister bombing into my bedroom.
Okay. What time was that?
I thought it was somewhere between 6 and 6:30.
If I told you it was around 6:45 based on video surveillance footage, would you quarrel with that?
If that's what you say.
Okay. Does that sound about right to you?
Yep. I initially from the beginning just said 6:30. I wasn't quite sure.
Ms. Albert, what about the two calls that you received from your sister at 6:07 and 6:08 a.m., which were answered?
I never answered any phone calls from my sister that morning.
You're aware that the Cellbrite records indicated that you answered two calls from your sister.
Objection, Your Honor.
And 6:08 a.m.
The objection sustained.
Do you recognize this document?
Recognize it?
Do you know what it is?
Well, yeah. I see what it is.
Does it refresh your recollection as to the two calls you received on the morning of January 29th?
It says here 2 calls were placed.
Okay, don't read it, but you were asked a specific question. So if you could answer the question, please.
Does that refresh your recollection to the two calls you received from your sister on the morning of January 29th?
She may have placed those phone calls to me, but I never answered them.
You received a call from Jennifer McCabe on January 29th at 6:07:42 a.m. that lasted for 9 seconds, correct?
She may have placed a phone call to me. I never answered it. I never spoke to her that morning.
You also received a second call from your sister at 6:08:17 a.m. that lasted for 7 seconds, correct?
Objection.
Go ahead and answer that.
It says that, but I never answered a phone call from my sister Jennifer that morning.